to a special edition of the Overline podcast. We're doing more of a question and answer session today. But what we're most excited to talk about is the roadmap that we are launching today. And we have in the studio here, we have Arjun Rajjain and we have Patrick McConlogue.
Hey, how are you?
So we're going to be doing something different, I believe, having a screen share of the roadmap. We're going to release this live for those of you watching the streaming platforms on Twitch and YouTube, so you can follow along as we walk through this brand new roadmap. Let's go ahead and turn it over to Patrick to kick us off. We're going to go through some of the more exciting portions of the roadmap, and maybe at the end we'll hear some questions from you guys as well.
So we have been waiting for this day for the team working on this at least 4 years. For some of the old members of the community, they can look on this day with finally we see what's under the cover. And what's interesting with this roadmap is it's the first time that we've built our strategy for taking this viral. So we are going to arm everybody here with hot content that people can understand, that's graspable immediately in how they can engage, and we are going to grow this community. And we're going to have a blast doing it. This is a stage in the life of the company that I've been very, very excited about. And you can see that in how we have structured this roadmap. So we're thinking differently out the gate. People don't go to websites anymore. Building a coin, just a coin, is not enough. It's not, if you're building a 100-year plan, the technology itself is not the destination. And we've said this over and over again, but you'll see in the thesis of this roadmap, a coin is not enough is actually just the beginning of the strategy. So we have broken the roadmap into an image, a shareable set of chunks that we can tweet, we can post to Reddit, we can send to Discord, and we can use as an individual NFT itself. So we'll be issuing the actual roadmap as the progress happens in limited NFTs, not as a way to hype up some sort of drop, but as a way for you to prove how early you were a part of the community. And that's the magic that's happening in the blockchain ecosystem right now, is that memberships are becoming provable and people now understand that. And so we are going to be doing big, big things with the way that you can look at your peers and interact with your peers as we build this incredible technology. There are three main columns here: done, building, next. It's simple and straightforward. And based on the community vote, we are following the theme of Lord of the Rings. So you'll notice that each card has a stage to it. The stage we're in right now is the beautiful, luxurious Green Shire. And we started working on that October 1st. So you'll notice there are a number of different checkboxes that shows you what's being done, and then the progress of the card, which indicates we're actually almost done with the things that we're building here. We're going to consistently update this image. And so you're going to see these things change occasionally, but each time we do, it's going to become an NFT. Now, some of our sugary or salty members of the community are going to be able to show different parts of the NFT. But historically speaking, we're going to watch this company evolve provably on the chain as the roadmap of changes. You're actually going to be able to swap versions of the NFT. And we have a couple of mega events to share with you later on in this cast. But before I dive in too deep, so bringing it back to the community, we, just full disclosure, have been close with the Uniswap team for a while. We've watched everything from the crazy socks they've sold to the AMM. And every time we advised the same feedback, people can make more money not on the chain. Every time that advice, well, I think we were wrong from a pricing standpoint. Clearly, it's a successful project. You can make a lot more money running a multi-market maker. And that goes back to the premise of today's conversation, coin is not enough. You can't just sit on Ethereum and expect to be a functioning global project. So to point out where Arjun's discussing this topic, he's talking about the public access to the multi-market maker for Overline in the Gandalf the Grey stage. So if you think about it, we are setting up these cool little cards that will help us, the community, you kind of have fun with the project. We're going to stay in the theme. I think everybody should probably, after this, go watch some Lord of the Rings movies, read the books.
That's always a good decision, but even more so today.
Yeah, right. The geeks of us here. But on that, let's talk about the first major thing. And the more savvy you are going to notice immediately some unique elements of what's coming in Overline. So, Craig, what exactly is the decentralized chat on Overline in the Gandalf the Grey stage?
That is excellent. And this is something that we have been talking about for a long time. We've actually even referenced on some of the previous podcasts here on the Overline podcast with JMB. That was about maybe 3 months ago. Josh had mentioned, I think a question from the community was, what's some of the most exciting things coming down the pipeline? And we referenced back then, and you can actually see it live now on the roadmap, is chat functionality. This is something that, again, coming back to the theme that we've been talking about, having a coin, having an app, having a wallet is simply not enough. We need to go deeper. We need to enable the community not only to manage their funds, but communicate on the platform itself. And so the more you can actually use the platform for communicating and interacting and socializing with other individuals in the community, the greater the network effects are. So the social decentralized chat in Overline is going to be a fully compatible chat platform within the mobile app itself, using Overline and using the actual protocol itself to send encrypted messages back and forth to other members on the platform. Again, this is brand new, completely unheard of up until this point on our platform. It was simply trading, sending, receiving, collateralizing. Now it's messaging, a brand new arm of the ecosystem.
So how does that help the community drive more use of Overline? And my point with that question too is we need to stop with this short-term stuff, Shiba, Doge plays. These things, if you look to history, they not only are not successful financially, but they're actually not even as valuable. So next, let's take a look at the upcoming mega event. And now, just having referenced that, you realize how important the next couple of months are going to be. But if we look at this in terms of activities, the genesis of Bitcoin is the historical beginning of NFTs. And we've noticed now that NFTs are actually an onboarding tool more than an artifact. They allow people to interact personally with something that previously had been this, we think, beautiful looking SHA-256 hash, and now see a bored ape. And that's far more relatable, but it's engaged people with this membership premise. So it's interesting when you look at Counterparty, which you guys may not know of, but Counterparty started as a very OG way to interact with smart contracts. What they proposed when Ethereum's buzz was happening is that we can do all the smart contract operations on Bitcoin. We can do token issuances, we can do NFTs, we can do dividends, etc. And so it's been running quietly in the background for years, picking up very little attention because it's this unmarketed little tool. But it's just now reached a level of maturation as the industry has caught up to the technology. The industry has not caught up to Overline. So don't freak out or worry about us. We have our day in the sun. Nobody's doubting that. What we are excited about, though, is building the roots to see how big that's going to go. Counterparty probably won't get much bigger. Their goal has been achieved. They let you do cool interactions on Bitcoin, but the evolution of the technology is done. The evolution of Overline is evolving at a breakneck pace in what it can do. One of the cool things is that we're going to allow you to be able to buy things like Spells of Genesis, Rare Pepes, Bit Crystals on Ethereum directly without having to wrap it in some weird container. You'll actually be able to access these original NFTs and trade them directly on Overline. Not just that, but we open up the entire universe of NFT issuance, which is ridiculously cheaper and far more effective on Bitcoin than it is on Overline. Or than it is on Ethereum. So for example, it would cost you around $180 right now in fees to mint an NFT on Ethereum. On Counterparty, on Bitcoin, it costs you about $12 in Bitcoin. And if you think about it, which chain, just playing everything else out, is more likely to last 100 years? I mean, already we're looking at totally detonating the Ethereum 1 environment for Ethereum 2. Like, these are active discussions. Bitcoin is where art should stay, and Overline is going to be art's gateway into Bitcoin. We aren't doing some weird wrapped thing like Stacks is doing. This is real NFTs, real Bitcoin, no custodianship risk. It's an actual DEX that lets you get to rare Pepes. So we'll be doing some very interesting stunts with that in the future. But I'd love to hear your feedback on this, Arjun. What is the Bored Ape craze? And how can we flip membership clubs into our upcoming technology with real estate NFTs?
I think it evolved very, very fast. When NFTs were first starting to be issued out a few years ago on ETH, they didn't really know what it was going to be used for. They were like, okay, this is an interesting thing. It's basically kind of an ERC20 that's of an amount 1. But then that slowly started to evolve where this idea of ownership became such a strong part, where it was very clear to be like, oh yeah, I own this now. I think with the phenomenons like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, I think the function of it just increasing in price was a part of its membership too, where suddenly now for the Bored Ape Yacht Club, there's this exclusive group of people that were willing to shell out hundreds of thousands, if not millions, to own this thing that they can say that they prove that they own. And now the Bored Ape Yacht team went a step ahead and actually offered things in exchange for owning a Bored Ape yacht. And I think that's what really made it as big as it is now. So you look at that, what that really means is that people want to enact in the real world using these NFTs. So you look at that in the idea of real estate. Real estate is all about ownership. And the process in the real world right now to buy a place or sell a place is a nightmare. Middlemen all throughout. So the idea of using NFTs to enhance real estate is almost a trivial one. And that's one that we've been working behind the scenes a lot on. You're going to hear a lot more about that.
We had also had a full podcast on with Greg Gleischer only a couple of weeks ago, so highly recommend going back and listening to that if you want a little more of a sneak preview on that particular one.
Greg is also an avid listener, so hello, Greg.
Hi, Greg.
Hey there.
We like Greg. In terms of upcoming, and this is the most fun part of this conversation, or something I've been most excited about, we're actually shutting down EMB Nation. Let's take a look at the Diamond Hands Club. I've always wanted to do this, and I think that Bored Apes made it mainstream to do this. We're going to create a chat room that is an encrypted room. And we started working on this about 4 months ago when we began adding the messaging components for the wireless miners, because we're playing 3 moves ahead. And that's not trying to say that we're better. What I'm trying to say is there's a massive opportunity for savvy players to filter out the noise. And to get the noise out in the regular world, you'd go buy a membership at a golf course or a country club. And these memberships actually act as filters for certain kinds of people.
Mm.
Maybe you like to golf. But in our case, we've got people who know what emblems are. We know what they are as a team. We know how important they are. And we know that a coin isn't enough. That's why emblems themselves, which the world will get, is raw GPU power that lasts forever. It's literally green GPU mining power programmatically in a protocol. So all of these asset classes are going to be able to buy GPU power without depending on a supply chain. I mean, it's amazing. But that's not the end of emblems. We want to expose emblems to our entire strategy. So they're the underlying component to our entire economic system. The first stage to that is to create the new EMB nation. So we started working on that a couple months ago, and we finally reached the point where we'd like to talk about it. So for no reason at all, we picked a very important threshold.
42,069. It's a very important threshold.
No comment.
Yeah, so we're all just looking to Arjun to see if he reacts. That threshold is what is required for the new EMB nation. So launching in the next couple of weeks, you will be able to enter an encrypted chat room as long as your address has that. This chat room will ultimately become freely broadcast over the Overline network. So it's a never before seen thing. These kinds of people, whoever controls that amount of EMB, in a couple of years, it's an insane cost. It would be the cost to get into the highest country club to have that much. But that particular threshold also acts as a mechanism to organize individuals and begin the backbones of a true governance system. Not one of these crappy, we all vote on random things that barely impact the protocol. I mean, like when a person chats in that group, it's automatically broadcast through the Overline wireless network. And we're able to do that because of the multi-chain capabilities. So each one of these nodes that is running on Overline as a hotspot, when they relay a message, they only relay it for free if it has above that threshold. So what you end up getting is a very unique news feed of people who are deeply involved in the protocol. In the early days, before the miners are released in their hardware form, we'll be allowing you to access this in the browser at EMB Nation. So the new EMB Nation is for the emblem hands, the diamond hands, the killers, and those guys will be able to chat, talk with each other privately as long as they maintain that balance 100% of the time. Each message they're chatting in there will require a signature that has that balance at it. It's going to be a fascinating social experiment as well as an opportunity to connect with influential players in the ecosystem, which continue to grow. So we continue to see a beautiful Gini coefficient. The Gini coefficient is the spread of wealth through the ecosystem. And we continue to see large fractions of that split out and create a really good Gini coefficient.
So one of the things that you sort of notice, not only in the EMB Diamond Hands EMB Nation room, is a pivot from downloadable applications to in-browser activity. We've got another one of those that we're going to talk about shortly, but it's important to note that specifically moving to in-browser activity on the Overline protocol is completely necessary to making this thing what you all know it is, a large viral mechanism of distributing free wireless communication around the world. So moving things where you don't have to download a specific application or you have to have specific hardware requirements, but if you're in browser anywhere in the world, you can use this technology. So Arjun, we've been talking about this as one of the most exciting things coming out in the very near term, but that has long-term lasting impacts. The Overline swap. So can you tell us a little bit more about what we can expect from that?
Yeah, sure. So as I was mentioning in the start, a lot of the focus on the app team is to basically simplify what it is that we built. For those that have used the Overline app so far, you see that it emulates that of an advanced trading interface. Overall, whether that was feedback that we received or just from our own research, is that we needed to simplify things. And that's exactly what we've done. So the Overline swap is exactly the way it sounds. Allows you to easily swap from Overline to ETH, from Overline to USDT, from USD to Overline in a very, very simple way. You don't have to worry about the order book or any of those complex things. And we believe that this is just going to be a very easy way to bring in even more people into the Overline world.
So let's talk about next steps in this journey. And that's where we have to think about this. The market makers of the wireless universe are going to be the guys who figure out how to use the multi-market maker now on the internet. And the reason that's the case is because when you're using a swap, for example, your swap capabilities are entirely dependent on liquidity. And I'm sure we've all noticed, hey, where is the emblem liquidity? We are very, very aware of the power of having an enormous amount of liquidity. We love liquidity, but it's important to turn that on as soon as the network is both capable of handling it and we have the infrastructure and interface to bring in new, arguably uninformed users. This DeFi situation has brought in literally millions of people ready to go for in-browser experiences. And when they see that they can not only send messages, chat, and trade without ever touching the internet, get better prices, and pay literally 95% cheaper costs or fees than things like Uniswap, it's going to be a deluge of users. That deluge is supported and in turn they profit from by our market makers. The multi-market maker program is going to be arguably more profitable than mining in at least some cases where you may not have emblems. But as a multi-market maker, you will be able to directly inject liquidity into the system and you'll be able to generate returns 300 to 400% more than Uniswap. And that is easily calculatable when you see how these things work and how market makers work in today's world. Real market makers that settle on chain is just an infeasible fee situation. It collapses on itself, which is why we're seeing the fees we see today. So let's go back to the roadmap for a moment. We have next as a marker to show you what's coming, but then we have a queue. And this queue called upcoming is where we have all the things coming in the future. And you'll be getting this tonight at 9 o'clock, a full run sheet of all the points in this as an image, but also as a location. So you can easily review it yourself. And then we'll be releasing the NFT to popular members of the community in the next couple of weeks. But this upcoming area lets you see where we're going generally without having a fixed step-by-step process. So things like the Overline pop-up shop in Tribeca, New York City. We're opening a dedicated retail store to let people come and mess around with these wireless nodes. Now think about that for a second. When we say not just a coin, we are a group of people, a community, where the thing that you can connect with people over is real. It's physical. You can hold it in your hand. That's an incredible advantage. And we realize that. So let's embrace it. We're going to have this very cool shop. Yes, for the members of the community still acting about the hoodie, it will be stocked with some hoodies as much as we can. They are very cool. So I understand the desire. And for the people who have gotten them already in the mystery links, good job paying attention to the cards. Cards will continue to be important as we go forward. But when you review some of these points, things like an Overline pop-up shop, no one's done anything like that in the crypto space except these NFT guys. So let's learn from what they're doing and expand on some of those community growth tactics. And we're going to keep doing that. So things like buying a GPU that's preloaded with emblems. That's a product that we're offering directly through something we're calling Overline Pay, which is a fully backed, fully licensed and compliant gateway to take credit cards and wire transfers for Overline. So we see Overline as a rapidly evolving ecosystem, but more importantly, we see your relationship with us far more as a membership, especially when you're this early in the project. So we want to be able to continue to reward that membership with unique ways to get you involved, whether it's a dedicated chat system with broadcasting capabilities all the way out to governance. So on the governance side, Craig, what exactly are we doing with the NFT Museum, and how are these emblem diamond hands involved in that process?
Great question. And it's actually goes back. I hate to keep plugging the Overline podcast, but again, if you're listening, go ahead and subscribe to that, because we've already sort of talked about what the Museum of the Future is going to look like with Todd Morley only a month ago. So when we talk about decentralized curator, what is a museum? A museum is a place where not only culture is gathered, but culture is created. And I think that for this specific group of individuals, the group of individuals who own and hold emblems, this is part of that club that we were talking about. The ability to create the culture of Overline should have long-reaching and long-lasting implications. And we're actually going to do that in the physical world. So when we talk about decentralized curation, emblem holders are going to be able to participate in deciding what actually gets placed into the NFT museum itself. Again, the whole point of a museum is to gather and create the culture of the time and of the area. We believe that you emblem holders, are the ones that will be able to decide the culture of where this is going. So along with the emblem chat room, along with other bonuses that will be given to folks that hold emblems, this specific aspect is going to be the title of decentralized curator can now be added to anyone who holds these amounts of emblems.
So if you go back to the start of this conversation, we see a roadmap that drives people to emblems, but emblem ownership is meant for the people who are deeply involved in the protocol. Switching to the conversation of Overline, how are people going to use it? The first way that you use Overline is obviously to trade. So as people begin to understand that, we will slowly pull it out of the view or the purview of the user. In situations like XRP, for example, where they use XRP to collateralize transfers between banks, the user doesn't need to see that. And we see a universe where Overline rapidly becomes that settlement layer. But at a deeper level, Overline is airtime. So we are making it possible for Venezuelans to trigger DeFi smart contracts on an unstoppable wireless internet. That's an enormous deal for 70 million Venezuelans. If we look at this from an impact standpoint, every single thing they do to update that wireless universe requires Overline. So it's exactly like Bitcoin in that if you want wireless Bitcoin, you want a wireless Ethereum, you want a wireless Bitcoin NFT, you'll need Overline to get to it in the same way the Ethereum fee world works. We don't see Overline being the price that it's at for very long, unfortunately. I do like this universe where things are really cheap right now. It's going to get more pricey to update a global wireless system. But as those updates happen, we've installed things that still let owners interact with the chain in important ways. So for example, if you're messaging from your phone, you can also think of emblems a lot like having a phone number. With a specific balance of emblems, you end up getting either free service, which is an interesting component of ownership, where we see things like brokerage firms and banks having a balance of emblems necessary to interact at a high speed and functional level. But we also see emblems becoming a ranging capability. So you might have an individual who's very interested in high-speed wireless trading, and so they would want to purchase around 16,000 emblems to ensure that they're very attractive for miners to get their transactions into blocks. So emblems, first and foremost, are decentralized GPU mining power. That is amazing. But emblems, in addition to that, become the membership metric that we use to determine how interactions work in Overline. If you have emblems, you basically have the phone number that lets you interact in that universe in a specific way. So with that, let's talk about the NFT that we've always had as an NFT, but we didn't know NFTs were going to be that thing, emblem releasing. Arjun, how's it going to look, and what are we thinking there?
Yeah, so emblem leasing is interesting as hell. What it basically allows you as an emblem holder is to issue out an NFT that represents the amount of emblems that you have. Anyone can then go ahead and buy that NFT. Then when they exercise it, the emblems get transferred to them. But at the end of the leasing time, and we've set that to 6 months, 12 months, or 24 months, the emblems come back to you. So this represents a very interesting thing because this allows you to become your own GPU manufacturer or your own AT&T. As an emblem holder, you can now lease these emblems to whomever. I mean, it is just amazing, right? I mean, this allows you to hold on to this asset forever, but then also to be able to earn off of it.
Now, one of the reasons Arjun's saying it's amazing is because we all know here, Arjun inclusive, how hard it is to get a GPU and how ridiculous it is, the premiums on these hardware supply chains. Being your own GPU manufacturer, being able to broker your own costs, bulk sales, also means things like, hey, if you want to sell access into the new upcoming EMB Nation, you can lease 42,069 emblems to someone else for 6 months. Sure, you can go try it out for 6 months, but after that time, membership's over. It's back to you. So we're letting you become your own governor of this power, but we're allowing the ecosystem to organically manage that revenue. So our universe, the Overline world, is a passive income generator. And it's the dream of mining, which in the Overline's case is really focused on the wireless side. The wireless mining has been all the way back to our white paper of transaction mining. Like that is how this whole thing began. But in the universe of your ownership of emblems, you are a member in a group that builds businesses. And that goes back to our premise around the small business program that we talked about last year. The idea that you can live off of how you manage your emblem and Overline ecosystem assets is the dream. That's the dream that banks should have given you. So we are helping free you of that financial system so that you can live entirely, automatically on the assets that you own yourself and don't require the custodianship of anybody else. So it's just a fascinating thing that's all starting to roll into the culmination event.
Another aspect of that is that it's not just enabling you to do that. The whole point of the threshold of the 42,000 emblems in order to join the EMB Nation chat group is because we think you should be enabling these businesses as well. Again, this is not just we're just not just a coin. This isn't just another crypto project that releases things every now and then that might boost the price a little bit here and there in the short term. This is about creating wealth, creating businesses. And you being early adopters of emblems are directly part of the future of where this is going to go. So you see here in the upcoming cards, you see many different emblem governance sections, things like voting on the next pop-up shop location. That was also a question, I believe, in the Discord that was asking about where other pop-up locations are going to be. That's something that we want. We want the emblem holders and these diamond hands to come in and help shape that future. So it's not just about providing a means for you to live completely governance independent, but also for you to enable others to do the same.
I do love the chat. It's just exactly what we want to see. In terms of up next, let's move to the next and last part of this conversation before we open it up to a couple of questions. Let's talk about the mega events. So mega events are a way for you to organize yourselves around specific dates coming up in the future. So the first major mega event is we're going to be doing things like trading a Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT for one rare Pepe Nakamoto. And that is going to be a useful experience for us to tap the ape community. It's a bunch of interesting fellows, bananas, lots of them. And not kidding, there are lots of bananas. They bring them everywhere they go at these events. But in terms of relationships, it's just going to get way more interesting as we expand the functionality of the community. And then the other thing is we're just going to start setting hard floors to get involved and start having your chats mean a lot in the Discord. So we began by breaking things into color coding scenarios, and we're going to continue down that path as we evolve EMB Nation based on what levels of participation you're in the group. It's important that we look at things like volatility in the market, and we acknowledge that the bull run is an opportunity to defend ourselves. So if we look at the upcoming mega events, the Rare Pepe and Spells of Genesis is fun, but real estate and wireless is because we are going to spread out our market position. So we don't want to be the coin that's always tied to whether or not Bitcoin's having a good day. We want to be the coins that tie to whether or not real estate is having a good day, or wireless is having a good day, or mining GPU power is having a good day. These are the things that allow us to set up the business for a longer term model and promote the exploration of new business verticals and development in a faster way. So the next mega event is the real estate NFTs made wireless. And this one we see as critical to the NFT museum, obviously, but we'll be taking a very large asset and allowing people exposure to it, allowing a whole industry access to this, and really linking in the narrative behind the wireless nodes. And the last mega event, and these are only upcoming, you'll notice in the cards, we've got a lot of these out there, but I am so excited for the way that we have structured the ticket sale. The ticket sale gets rid of all the annoying parts of drops, but kicks in all the amazing, I guess, fun or FOMO of drops and limited releases and products. If you can get a ticket, you have a fully claimable, movable, sendable, transferable ticket that gives you the right to a batch one wireless miner, which is crazy. You know, it's think of the helium universe, but no cords. And you can do something with it like trade billions of dollars a day. So there's a whole thing around these tickets. We'll also be doing some very unique stuff with the pop-up shops because I think the community is going to want to meet each other eventually. And I think the pop-up shops will create that sort of scenario. We'll be using a lot of the Bored Ape suppliers and their vendors and their marketing guys just because they're good. But in terms of expanding the community, these mega events are how we as a community need to come together behind them. If everyone in our chat room right now went and brought in one person, that's 5,000 new people to Overline. If everyone in the chat room right now, or even in the conversation, brought one new person, that's 50 people. That's a lot of people when you look at the public market. So look at the companies on NASDAQ, for example. The average company's market cap is actually around 54 million. To be listed on NASDAQ, like there's the average price. The number of actual shareholders in these companies is in the thousands, maximum. So when you talk 50, 60, 1,000 people, and we come together around these mega events, this is the lifeblood of Overline moving forward. And the important thing is we know that. So we have not been focused on community development. I think you guys have all enjoyed as Layla has started to unroll some of her community strategy. And as she starts to expand her team, that's going to continue to evolve. But hey, let's have a little more fun with this and turn on some Lord of the Rings and go on this adventure, because the Overline ring itself has a long, long path to go. With that, Craig, how do we want to talk about the location of the NFT museum?
The location of the NFT museum is something that is going to be very interesting, because when you talk about what is a museum, is a place where you gather and create culture. There have already been several great museums that already do this. Places like the Met Gala, the Met here in New York, places like the Guggenheim Museum. They do a great job of collecting art and artists from around the world and inviting the public to come view the culture. So what we have all sort of seen in the last even 6 months, much less last week, with the Meta announcement from Facebook, as well as a metaverse announcement from the CEO of Disney only a couple of days ago, is that augmented reality and virtual reality are going to play a huge part in the future of technology. We believe that as well. So what we are going to be doing in terms of placing the location of one of the initial NFT museum spots will actually be within a museum itself, somewhere where you cannot see the individual exhibits of the NFT museum unless you have downloaded the Overline app and can see it in augmented reality. So we'll be having these individual exhibits exist within physical exhibits as well. Something that's going to be very exciting moving forward.
Imagine kind of the NFT creative artists who are modifying real world assets based on where the art is going to be placed in the upcoming NFT museum. The other thing is, obviously, you'll need an Overline node to interact with this universe. So a lot like a museum ticket, the Overline node speaks radio. So the last thing to know with all of this, as we open this up for questions, and I think Leila will be filtering them through from Discord, is radio. Radio is our secret sauce. That's how we've driven all these partnerships. That's how we've done all this stuff. That's how we've done the upcoming acquisition. In all these things, we are looking at the radio world completely differently. And whoever's on this who has 15 minutes, you need to go study radio static and what it can do. Because what we allow you to do with an Overline node is interact with radio static in the way that nothing else on earth lets you do it. You can do things that, first, we solve this whole which node should win a transaction. That is the reason Helium can't scale. And they know that. We're actively trying to help them, but this keeps happening. We tell them and they don't listen. But in terms of what this algorithm does, proof of distance is designed for the radio space. And radio static itself actually lets you create fingerprints that associate the distance between two objects. So these hotspots let you associate the distance between two objects. Now let that sink in for a second. A car that would like to autonomously drive. This is a fairly useful piece of technology. A hospital that would like to know how many people have respiratory issues. Fairly useful piece of technology. If you look at the impact that a human being's radiostatic profile has on radiostatic space or noise, the language and universe of radio is totally different. There are people on this call who need to stop and go start a startup. Use Overline if you want or not, but the evolution of the space is inevitable. Radio is not just broadcasting electricity into the air. It's so much more. So now let's do some questions from the Discord or Mike.
If you lease the emblems, can you still go into the emblem chat room?
So the answer is that you basically need to, when you sign to enter into the room, we actually actively see how much emblems you hold. So if your emblems have been leased and the emblems have been transferred out, no. If you do not have the right amount, no, you will not be able to enter in.
And if you have simply leased emblems, you cannot enter either. The point is that we want the emblem holders to be true believers and actually have diamond hands. No, if you simply have leased emblems, you can't enter the chat room. What other question do we have from Discord?
We have Crypto Guy asking, how would the NVIDIA GPU come with preloaded with emblem?
Great question. So this is a very interesting concept that we've played around with a little bit internally, doing some testing, but we think that it's going to be very successful. This is preloading emblems onto a GPU, a fully loaded GPU miner that is ready to go with the one-click miner that already has emblems completely embedded into the system itself, or into the miner itself. So what this is going to do is allow you to purchase with a credit card directly emblem utility through purchasing it already baked in to the GPU.
And this is Craig leads a lot of leads the team for Overline Pay, actually. Congratulations, Craig.
Thank you.
And in terms of procedure and process, Overline Pay is a very forward-thinking part of the organization, because think about it, we are going to be able to take credit cards for our assets. That means you can buy emblems with a credit card, you can buy Overline with a credit card, you can buy GPUs with emblems on it. Obviously 100% compliant, but in terms of a purchasing process, it's the easiest onboarding ramp ever to get into this ecosystem. And anyone who has mined at all with emblems realizes the immediate power that, hey, I'm not mining with my emblems. Transfer them over to my mining address, please. Because it's just one of those things.
Definitely.
Next question.
We have a question from Zibo. He's asking, will you involve corporation in your ecosystem? On another question for Patrick, what is your view on the future of the metaverse?
My lizard overlords have told me not to comment on the future of the metaverse, but I do see the future of the metaverse playing out exactly as lackluster as the multiple announcements of Alphabet and the moonshot part of Google. And so you can actually see businesses do this as they begin to stagnate. They are searching for new innovative paths, and so they attempt to do a land grab or an image change by claiming that's theirs. We saw it in IBM. And so for some of the older people here who might be a little dated, IBM was once a very cool company. And as it stagnated, it lost that ability. But as it stagnated, it also began to claim it was other companies. We're just like Apple. We're just like Microsoft. So these things are a natural part of the system. The first part of that question, corporation partnerships. Interesting. Well, we want to partner with IBM. No, corporation partnerships are critical to evolving what emblems are. What we see corporation partnerships more as is that entity buying a large amount of emblems from the open market and then basically becoming a part of the ecosystem. So companies right now that have partnered with us are primarily interested in the media components of our business. So the Overline Media partners side is dedicated to enabling new ways to decentralize media. And that category, from an organization standpoint, really runs by itself. They've been doing a great job, but they've been evolving the standard of those partnerships. And I don't want to take their thunder. So there's a lot of stuff coming in that category. But here's the thing. Radio, once you have an X factor in radio, and then once you have a device that can speak that X factor, I think it's going to be something that the lizard overlords would have wanted in their metaverse. But in terms of what you're able to do with it, it's going to change a lot of stuff. So yes, it changes the blockchain world very quickly in the banking world, but it's going to change media as well.
We have Borderless Money asking, will the Overline app be the single window into all this utility for both Overline and Emblem?
In short, no, simply because Overline itself is a decentralized network. That being said, we believe, just because of our engineering team and the prowess, that the Overline app will be the best way to interact with the Overline itself. That being said, we encourage, the people that want to build their own apps. They are more than free to do so. And please look into our RPC to understand how this works. In short, the Overline app will be the best way to interact with Overline, but not the only way.
So a thing that you'll be able to do, for example, is the Twitter bridge. So when you do something like @Overline or number freedom through cryptography, for a while, we'll actually be automatically taking your tweet, we'll pay the fees for it, and post it and broadcast it to the Overline network. So we'll be doing this thing. It's a mega event scheduled for middle of next year, where we're leaving the internet. And we talked to a couple of podcasts actually who will be leaving with us. And it's an interesting event in that we're not leaving the internet per se. We're just extending it to the new world. And so we'll actually be able to operate at that time most of our communications in a fully decentralized way. You'll be able to subscribe on your phone, but rather than needing an internet connection, you'll simply be getting the messages directly from the Overline network. You'll be able to follow our address. So for savvier members, they'll have noticed that 1.4.8 was a meteoric update to our code base. It included things like counterparty upgrades, and then it included the stubs for the upcoming native persistence. So native persistence is a huge migration effort, and the engineering team has done a lot on that. I think we'll be doing a podcast on that either next week or the week after with Adam, the CTO. But the direction there has been very, very smart, because they've killed 3 birds with 1 stone. They've been optimizing the database while building it to be fully compatible with the embedded hardware or the embedded software that runs on the hardware, while making sure that that has the smallest byte for byte footprint for high-speed transmission wirelessly. So Adam is a very sharp guy, and his team is doing really, really great work. Kevin as well has done some incredible shifts to get us into a supply chain and get us access to chips, which is just huge.
I think we have time for maybe one more question.
Can Timber script be Overline's Solidity?
I would akin it to more the Bitcoin scripting language. That being said, the functionality is much more than Bitcoin scripting language itself. So, and that is and that will evolve, and you'll be able to do a lot more abstract things in the same way that you can on ETH.
I like all the caps. When is the swap coming out? We're going to launch it as soon as we're ready. It is, I think we're very, very close, but this is one of those things where if you know how to be involved in early stage projects, the moment you get out of early stage projects is when they stop rapidly evolving. And that just means that they've either matured or stagnated in their momentum and progress. The fact that things are always changing and moving very quickly is indicative of how big of a bite of the market we're about to try to take. And so there's an element of be patient, but there's also an element of we don't want to launch the swap because we think it's going to be incredibly hot, and we want to make sure that it works perfectly before we let this thing out into the wild. First, it's also only available for OL. So we're allowing people to onboard much easier and faster into the ecosystem by transitioning in OL. Things like Axie Infinity are an example of, wow, once you show people something funky and weird, which is the gaming component of Axie Infinity, then when they see a wireless miner and they see what we're dealing with or working on in the gaming space, these individuals will do anything to get into it. And in terms of onboarding, the swap is going to be amazing. So it is amazing now. It works beautifully, but think of the complexities of building an actual DEX. I mean, if you're developing, you know what I'm saying. Building an actual DEX where there's no centralized server to ping for state or control or lock is very difficult. And so building the swap so that there is no point of centralization at all has been difficult, but it has turned out to work beautifully.
Yeah, we have a question from Pavel. How will you control the distribution of the 22,000 wireless miners around the world?
So right now it looks like 27,000 is the optimum first wave batch. The question is, can we get 27,000 manufactured in this current supply chain? And you should see what some of our guys are doing to go get chips. But in terms of the 22,000 distribution points, there are 3 different ways we're going to be doing that. One, focusing on regional advantages. So there are certain locations like New York City where it's just going to be a great use case and a very difficult operating environment. So building it here has actually been a big competitive advantage for this entity, or building it with a lot of the core team contracting from here. But in terms of contractors in Europe, I see that our location is going to be a big part of using it. That's also why we designed the ticket system to allow you to participate in the wireless mining wave, even if in your area we're not planning on shipping wireless miners very often. And so what that actually means is if you're buying a wireless miner ticket, your goal is to get one. If you're coming in with a specific zip code or location, it's going to be harder to get one. If you're coming in, and I guess this is a tip, with emblems, it's going to be much easier to be able to get a hold of these tickets. But that all ties back to things like EMB Nation.
Yeah, that answers the question from RR, which asks, please make EMB mandatory to purchase -1 of wireless miners.
Was that a question or a statement?
So the answer to that question is obviously that it's not going to be mandatory, but it certainly will be helpful.
Look, this is going to be a fun thing. As you guys have seen, like, we can FUD all day long, and we're still going to never trade below the initial coin price. We're still never going to go anywhere near that, because at the end of the day, folks know cutting edge technology is hard, and it's got bumps, but it's a win. It's the way this stuff works. So we have a question.
There's one last interesting one, Pat. Will the Overline miner be able to pick up a person's brainwaves?
Yes. What you should do to qualify my statement, because that sounds like a load of snake oil, is go research 122 kilohertz and the impact on gamma waves. But you should realize that, like, look, a team who knows that the radio wave components of your brain are identifiable is a team who has a few cards to play. And so, same kind of thing here. Things like EMB Nation as a limited exclusive chat environment is cool. If we have you coming to Olympia, you won't be using a wristband. We don't need one. We know who you are when you get there. And so things like the Olympia wristband is going to be very useful for us to just say, I mean, it's easy in the world to say that you're an interoperability chain. How about identify somebody at the door because they've already assigned their wallet to their static profile? That's a little harder to pretend you can do without actually doing the work that we've done over the last couple of years, the very hard work to build a radio speaking engine that can trade between blockchains. So trade is our way of spreading our network. That's why we focus on decentralized trade in the first stage of our business. But as you'll see, proof of distance is built into everything, and the wireless MAC addresses are in everybody's wallet. So we have enabled wireless from day one, but we see mining as the onboarding tool. So like Bitcoin spread through the world, you'll see these wireless miners distribute and spread throughout the world very quickly. Just so you know, there's been some creative stuff, like I love that last question, a DIY wireless miner. There are certain countries we think might find unlimited, open, unstoppable internet a little annoying. And so we've, to those countries, leaked our circuit board design directly so that they can copy, cat, and emulate creating stuff on this network. We hope that helps to drive some of the price down on these. Look, it's going to be very hard to get a wireless miner. And so don't FOMO into this stuff. Do not go pay ridiculous things on eBay. Be patient. Wireless miners will be available to everyone. You're going to be able to get one. It's just, it might not be in the first wave, and that's okay. Like, let it evolve organically. Emblems are going to be the same way. Like, if you look at the total number of emblems that have moved, the ecosystem knows what these are. Everybody's waiting with these things. Our percentages and points on this are off the charts. So what we'll be doing in the short term for the trading folks in here is strategically turning on our market makers, both our corporate ones as well as our in-person multi-market makers, and turning that on as the products are there to capture the people that are coming in. Short-term Shiba coin junk is exactly that. We are not interested in it. We are a 100-year strategy, and we are interested in the Dutch East Indies company-sized thing, not a picture of a dog. Now, maybe a picture of a bored ape, but that's just because it's fun. All right, with that, I think we will close. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Tonight at 9, we'll be posting the picture, and you guys can review it in detail in all of its high-res glory. No, JMB did not design this, so do not impugn his design thesis with its roughness. We'll probably be updating the appeal soon. He was very off put by it, him and those guys. But yes, we have a very dry roadmap, but a very fun theme. So from here on out, you guys are on the path with us in the Lord of the Rings universe. And we're in the Shire for now, so enjoy it. Nobody really knows about the hobbits. It's fine. But upcoming, we're going to be picking characters, items, toys. It'll be fun. So thanks for everyone for being on this path with us. And let's go enable some freedom through cryptography.
Thanks, everyone. Talk to you next time.
That was the Overline podcast. Tune in to listen to us weekly or follow us on Twitter at Overline Network.